Charles Spencer did something very big and very surprising on a Thursday morning. He showed the world a piece of paper that changed everything we thought we knew. For 30 years, the people who work for the royal family told us a specific story. They tried very hard to make us believe things that were not actually true. This letter proves that the stories about Princess Diana and Princess Anne were wrong. They were not just a little bit wrong. They were completely and totally wrong. Everything we were told was the opposite of what really happened behind the closed doors of the palace. The way this letter was found and shown to the world is just as exciting as the secrets written on the paper itself. The timing of this news was not an accident. There are even 2 copies of this very important letter. They are kept in very safe rooms called vaults in 2 different parts of England. Charles Spencer planned this reveal very carefully. The lawyers at the palace were very worried. They stayed up all night long trying to find a way to stop him from sharing the letter. But in the end, they realized they had no power to stop the truth from coming out. Charles Spencer sat in a very large and beautiful room called a library at his home, Althorpe House. This house is a giant estate in a place called Northamptonshire. If you saw a picture of this library, you would think it looks just like a movie set about old kings and queens. It has very tall windows that let in the bright morning light. There are thousands of books on the walls with covers made of old leather. The room feels very quiet and very serious. Charles sat at a heavy desk made of dark walnut wood. He had a special box made of mahogany. This box was not kept in a regular drawer. It was pulled out of a very safe vault deep under the heavy stones of the big house. It was hidden away where it would stay safe for a very long time. This shows how important the box and the papers inside were to the family. Charles Spencer was very careful when he opened the box. He put on special white gloves made of cotton. These are the kinds of gloves people wear when they are touching very old and very important history papers. This tells us that the letter was not just a normal family note. It was a treasure that needed to be protected from the oil on people's fingers. He took out an old iron key and put it into a lock made of brass. When he opened the box, he saw that it was lined with soft blue silk that looked a bit faded from time. Inside was a single piece of light blue paper. This paper was written on August 10, 1997. This date is very important. It was exactly 21 days before Princess Diana died in a car crash in Paris. Because the letter was written so close to the end of her life, every word she wrote feels much more important and serious. The piece of paper had a special red mark at the top. This mark is called a crest, and it showed that the letter came from Kensington Palace. The letter was covered in the handwriting of Princess Diana. She used a black pen to write her thoughts. Charles Spencer did not just find this letter and tell the news right away. He waited for 2 days. He worked with a very smart expert who knows everything about old handwriting. They wanted to make sure the letter was real before they said anything to the public. They looked at the way the pen pushed on the paper and how the ink looked. They compared it to hundreds of other letters Diana had written a long time ago. Finally, the expert said that the letter was definitely real. These were Diana's own words and her own signature. There was no doubt that she was the one who wrote it. The things Diana wrote in the letter changed the whole story of her life. For 30 years, everyone thought that Diana and Princess Anne did not like each other. The newspapers and books always said they were rivals. They told us that Diana was a fancy princess who loved fashion and talking to the news. They said Anne was a very traditional person who liked horses and charity and had no time for Diana's famous lifestyle. People assumed that they avoided each other and never talked. But this letter proves that those stories were wrong. It shows that when Diana was going through her hardest times, she did not go to her famous friends. Instead, she went to Princess Anne for help and for protection. She went to the sister of the king because she trusted her more than anyone else. The way Diana wrote to Anne shows how close they really were. She did not use any fancy or formal royal titles. She just called her Anne. This shows that they were like real family and very close friends. The letter shows that Diana was feeling very scared and sad during that summer in 1997. She wrote about her fears regarding the people who worked at the palace. She was worried about how they were treating her 2 young sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. She felt like she needed to build a strong wall around her boys to keep them safe as they grew up. She believed that Princess Anne was the only person in the whole royal family who was brave enough to stand up to the palace bosses. Diana looked at everyone else and decided that Anne was the only one who would truly fight for her children. It is very interesting to learn how Diana sent this letter. She did not just put it in the regular mail at the palace. She knew that the people running the palace were watching her and reading her mail. So she used a secret way to send messages. This was a private network used by young royal family members to talk without the bosses knowing. She told her most trusted driver to take the envelope directly to the stables at Princess Anne's home. She did not want it to go to the front door. She wanted it handed directly to the person in charge of Anne's horses. She told them to keep it a total secret. This shows that Diana was being very careful and did not want any of the palace officials to see what she was doing. The letter went straight to Anne's desk without anyone else ever touching it. Before Charles Spencer told the world about the letter, he was very polite. He sent a copy of the letter to the king's office on a Wednesday afternoon. He wanted them to see it before everyone else did. When the king's lawyers saw the letter, they became very busy and very worried. They spent the whole night looking at old laws to see if they could stop the letter from being published. They wanted to keep it a secret, but they found out that they had no legal power to stop it. Because the letter was found in a private house and was sent to a private person, it did not belong to the government. It was a private family paper. The lawyers had to tell the king's advisors that they could not do anything to hide the letter. They said, "This is going to happen and we cannot stop it." People wanted to know what was in the letter that made the palace so scared. Diana wrote that she had found a secret document just 2 days before. This document showed a plan by the palace bosses to change her security. They wanted to take away her bodyguards so she would feel less safe. They thought that if she felt scared, she would do whatever they wanted. Diana called this an administrative trap. She used those words to describe how the lawyers were trying to trick her. She also wrote about an old law from the year 1772. She was worried the palace would use this law to take her children away from her. She was not just guessing. She had found the actual proof of their secret plan. This was a very serious thing for a mother to find out. Diana's biggest worry was not about herself. She was worried about her sons, William and Harry. She wrote that she was very scared of the cold and strict world of the palace. She was afraid her boys would be trapped in that world if she was not there to raise them. She said the people running the palace were like a board of directors for a big company. She felt like they did not see her sons as real children who needed love and hugs. Instead, she thought they saw the princes as parts of a machine. This is a very sad thing for a mother to write. It is even more powerful because she was saying this to the king's own sister. She was telling Anne that her own family's system was going to hurt the children unless someone did something to stop it. Diana begged Anne to help her. She asked Anne to ignore all the mean gossip that people had spread to keep them apart. She said she chose Anne because Anne was the only person with enough courage to look the king in the eye and tell him the truth. She wanted Anne to be a shield between her boys and the people who wanted to turn them into cold, unfeeling symbols of the country. Diana spent a long time writing this letter very carefully. If you look at the back of the page, you can see where she crossed out words and changed them. She wanted to make sure the language was very clear and strong. She wanted to make sure that if anyone found the letter later, they could not say she was just being emotional. She was making a real record of the truth. There was one part of the letter that made the palace very nervous on Thursday morning. In the middle of the second page, Diana mentioned a secret hiding place. She said she had over 200 more letters and diary entries hidden away. She wrote these papers starting from when she was a young girl in school until she was married. She told Anne that she had hidden this big collection of papers completely outside of the palace. They were not in the royal vaults at Windsor Castle. She told her helpers to show all these papers to the public if the palace ever tried to stop her from seeing her sons. This means there is a secret vault somewhere that has even more secrets inside. The king's lawyers are now trying very hard to find out where this vault is before any more papers are found. The letter ended with a small note at the bottom called a postscript. Diana wrote this right before she closed the envelope. She said she was leaving for a trip the next morning. She wrote that she felt very anxious and worried. She felt like she was running out of time to make sure her sons were safe and happy. Only 3 weeks after she wrote those words, she passed away. This makes the letter feel like a final message or a last will. It is much more than just a regular letter between family members. It sounds like she knew something bad might happen, and she wanted to make sure her children were protected no matter what. It is a very sad and powerful ending to her message. For 30 years, Princess Anne did something amazing. She kept her copy of the letter a total secret. She kept it in a very strong safe made of metal. This safe was bolted into the stone wall of her private office at her home. She hid it under other papers about horses and family land. No one who worked at the palace ever saw it. For 3 decades, while people wrote books and made movies about Diana, Anne stayed quiet. Even when people said she was mean or cold, she never said a word. She did not sell the letter for money or give interviews to the news. She kept the secret locked away and did not tell anyone. She was very good at keeping her promise to Diana. Princess Anne spent her whole life serving the royal family and the country. She believes that her most important job is to make sure the monarchy stays strong for a long time. She knew that if she showed the letter in the 1990s, it would have caused a huge problem for the country. People would have been very angry at the palace. It might have even hurt Prince William's future as a king. So instead of starting a public fight, Anne chose to keep the secret and carry the sadness by herself. She decided to do exactly what Diana had asked her to do. She became the protector of the boys in secret. She did not need the world to know she was being a hero. If you look at the old records of what Anne did, you can see she was helping. Between the years 1997 and 2005, she changed her work schedule. She made sure she was always at the palace when William and Harry were home from school. She did not bring any cameras or reporters with her. She just showed up in her own car and spent hours walking and talking with the boys. She gave them a safe and normal place to be themselves. She protected them from the people at the palace who were trying to use them for good publicity. While the newspapers were calling her cold, she was actually being the loving aunt and protector that Diana had prayed for. She just never told anyone she was doing it because she wanted to keep the boys safe. In the year 2026, the secret finally started to come out. The people who look after the royal history books wanted to see all of Princess Anne's private papers. They wanted to take them and lock them away in a place where no one could see them for 50 years. But Princess Anne said no. She told them that her private safe had family letters that did not belong to the palace. She refused to give them the keys to her safe. The lawyers at the palace realized they could not force her to give up her papers. She is the daughter of the queen, and they did not want to have a big fight with her. So they had to walk away and let her keep her secrets. Charles Spencer and Princess Anne talked to each other before the letter was made public. Charles drove to Anne's house to have a very important meeting in her office. He told her that his team had proven the letter was real. He said he thought the world needed to know the truth so that people would stop believing the old, false stories. Anne sat and listened in silence. She thought about it for a while, and then she told him he could move forward. She knew that if they tried to hide it now, it would look like they were covering up a secret. So she let him tell the world. That afternoon, they opened her safe to check her copy against his copy. They were exactly the same. When the news finally came out, it was pure chaos inside Buckingham Palace. More than 300 people working there all tried to look at the letter on their computers at the same time. All the regular work stopped. No one was planning trips or writing news releases anymore. The bosses at the palace were very surprised. They stood in front of big TV screens and watched the news reporters talking about the administrative trap that Diana had written about so many years ago. They saw the newspapers with Diana's handwriting on the front page. They were not prepared for this at all. The secrets they had kept for 30 years were now being talked about by everyone in the world. This news really hurt the way people see the palace bosses. For a long time, the palace tried to say that the problems in the 1990s were just a sad marriage breaking down. They spent a lot of money to make themselves look like a modern and nice team. But this letter shows that there was a secret alliance between Diana and Anne. It shows that the palace was acting like a cold machine. This destroyed the story the palace had been telling for years. When people were asked what they thought, most of them said they really liked Princess Anne now. They were very happy that she had kept the secret to protect the boys. They were not happy with the palace bosses at all. Because of this news, the palace had to stop their other plans. They were supposed to talk about Queen Camilla's charity work on Friday morning, but the media experts realized that would be a bad idea. They knew that people would think it was rude to talk about fashion or parties while everyone was reading Diana's sad letter. So the head of the palace told everyone to stop. They locked all their new pictures and stories away until people stopped being so upset. They had to wait for the storm to pass. This shows how much one letter can change everything, even for a king and a queen. The king's team tried to get Prince William to help them. They wanted him to sign a letter saying that the family was all happy now and that the old problems were gone. They wanted to make it look like the letter was not a big deal anymore. But Prince William said no. He talked to his father's team on the phone for 20 minutes and told them he would not help them spin the story. He said the letter was a real part of his family history. He told them he respected his Aunt Anne for staying quiet for so long to protect his childhood. By saying no, William left the palace bosses to deal with the problem all by themselves. He chose to stand by his mother's words. The people who work at the palace press office had a very hard day. Their phones would not stop ringing. Journalists from all over the world were calling and asking questions. They wanted to know about the 200 secret papers Diana had mentioned. The press secretaries did not have any answers to give. They could only say that the papers were private. They sounded very nervous because they knew they could not control the story. No amount of fancy talking could hide what Diana had written in her own hand. It was a historical moment that they could not fix with a simple press release. On Friday afternoon, the letter was officially recorded in a big government database in London. A person who looks after important history papers put a special digital lock on the file. Now, the letter is part of the country's permanent history. The original light blue paper is kept in a special box that stays at the right temperature so it will never rot. It is safe from anyone who might want to destroy it or change it. It is now a piece of history that belongs to everyone, not just the palace. It is stored in a place where it will be kept safe for hundreds of years. Outside the gates of Buckingham Palace, many people stood in silence. They were holding newspapers that showed pictures of Diana's handwriting. They felt very sad but also very glad to know the truth. Almost everyone who was asked said they were very thankful for what Princess Anne had done. They were happy she was there for William and Harry when they were little. The image of Anne as a cold person was gone forever. People now saw her as a very kind and brave woman who did the right thing even when it was hard. She had become a hero to the public because of her secret loyalty. So what does this mean for the royal family today? It means that the stories they told for 30 years are gone. One single piece of paper from a secret vault changed everything. Prince William is now seen as a leader who wants to do things his mother's way. He is not following the old rules of the palace bosses. The people who used to run everything have to be quiet now. And Princess Anne, who everyone thought was distant, is now known as the person Diana trusted most. The letter from the past did more than just tell a story. It rewrote history and showed us the truth about a mother's love and a sister's promise.